What's up everyone, this is Don151, back with a regularly scheduled Mekkah to bring you Part 1 Chapter 7 of my Fire Emblem 10 Hard Mode 0% Girls playthrough.
Hey, glad to be back, and glad to be back in a actual Seas map. We haven't seen this in a while. I bet this brings Don back memories of the good old days of the Binding Blade and Shadow Dragon, where all you have to do is get Mekkah to the Seas point and end the map that way. And fortunately for 1-7, Don does have a lot of tools at his disposal to help with that. Most importantly, units that can pick up Mekkah and then canto to a different tile, such as Jill and Fiona. Unfortunately, in indoor maps like these units take a 2 movement penalty that makes it a bit harder to get to the Seas point. Laguz do not suffer from this, but the problem with that is that a Laguz like Volug does not have canto, so he can't move as far in the end. The fortunate thing about Jill is that she is promoted, so she still has 7 movement, and she can fly over ledges without taking a movement penalty from that.
Because most of our units can be committed towards getting Mekkah to the Seas point, that means that someone like Zihark can just go off into his own corner of the map and continue training, this time with the benefit of the Paragon skill, which doubles his experience gain, and allows him to gain like 16 experience instead of 6 per kill, which is not a lot, but every little bit counts. We also got the Brave Sword in the basis chapter, which prevents him from having to use something like a Killing Edge, and guarantees his ability to kill enemies. But he's still pretty reliant on dodging and skill activations to help survive. So this is where we should talk about biorhythm in Radiant Dawn. A lot of people get the impression that biorhythm is a totally random mechanic, and that's true for generic units such as generic enemies and generic NPCs, but that's not true for any playable characters who have a portrait like Zihark. The way that it works for these units is everyone has their own little curve with a predetermined amplitude and period for where their biorhythm goes. They always start at the same point. It progresses by 1 tick every single turn, and so as long as you take the same number of turns to reach any particular point in the game after that unit joins, then they're always going to be at the same place on the biorhythm curve. For Zihark, that means that on this turn and for the rest of this chapter, he's going to be in best biorhythm, which gives him plus 10% to his hit and avoid, but also plus 10% to all of his chance-based activation skills, such as Adept and Cancel, which allow him to kill enemies or prevent their attacks before they're able to hit him. Zihark has a biorhythm curve that spends a lot of time continuously at the best or worst levels, which allows us to incorporate it as part of a strategy as opposed to being some sort of pseudo-random annoyance that we have to deal with.
On turn 1, we used a couple of scrubs to shove Soth twice, and this is so he can recruit the Laguz Emancipation Alliance, who just showed up as 3 NPCs. Doing it this way is very recommended and in fact a very well-known strategy by Radiant Dawn veterans, and why would you play the map any other way? Even though there seem to be multiple routes to the throne, it's so much more intuitive to recruit all these units in turn 2 and have control of their actions, particularly because they're all good in their own way. 2 of them are Laguz, and unlike Volug, they do not have the Wild Heart skill, so once they reach 0 gauge, they will untransform and become pretty much useless in combat. Fortunately, they show up with 30 gauge, and there's not enough time in this chapter for them to run out, so in that regard, we're fine. And that's excellent because Morim, the first of these units, is excellent at fighting, about as good as Throniel was last chapter, only he's locked to 1 range. Vika is less combat-oriented, but she is a flying unit with Canto, and that's useful in this chapter. And finally, there's Tormod. He's not a Laguz, he's a human mage, and that gives him access to 1 to range, and with the help of Ilyana's Forged Thunder Tome, he's got enough accuracy this way to win the mage off against the guy on the ledge and get him out of our way so our other units can make progress towards the throne.
If you're an astute observer, you may have noticed that there was an other phase even before the Laguz Emancipation Alliance showed up, and that's because there are 5 NPC soldiers who are being held prisoner in the thus far unrevealed rooms that are guarded by an enemy soldier and a locked door. So these prisoner soldiers are side objectives in this chapter. You get some bonus experience first for revealing them, and then second if they manage to escape the map. And they are programmed to head towards the top left corner to escape there after Zihark defeats the enemy armor knight, and a cutscene happens that opens the door. Now it's going to take way too long for them to get there, so the only bonus experience that we can get is by breaking down those jail cell doors and revealing them. But it is something that we want to make sure we do, because we haven't really talked about bonus experience side objectives thus far in part 1, because most of the time they're very trivial and they don't give you very much at all. You get 100 bonus experience per soldier that's freed this way, and to give you an idea about how little actual experience it translates into, 100 bonus experience will give Zihark about 4 points of actual experience at his current level. So that's like breaking down all 4 doors and getting just over 1 kill's worth of experience. Zihark's experience routing is so tight though that every bit of buffer is worth chasing after.
Nolan, Ileana, and Aaron get in a very specific formation, a horizontal line that ensures that each of them can only be attacked once. This also forces the Armor Knights to let them through and allows them to deal with the prison cells that they were guarding previously. Volug has been very helpful this chapter. He hasn't gotten a lot of training in, but he has been able to, for example, pick up Soth and hand him off to Vika, so that he could be transported to the northern part of the map and pick up the hidden Master Seal next to the northern prison cell. And this allows him to promote our last unpromoted unit. That actually makes a difference. It's kind of strange and something I've noticed in, for example, tier list discussions, that there's an inverse correlation between how much a unit gets to train in the map versus how helpful they actually are to completing overall objectives. The latter is what Volug has mostly been doing, but in the process he's only gotten 2 weapon experience, whereas Zihark is the exact opposite. He's been training a lot, but he hasn't done anything to help us with this. For last couple things, we break open a couple doors, and of note is that Ileana, in order to open the last door for us, has to use an actual door key to do so, because with Elf Thunder she wouldn't have enough attack. She would with her Super Forge, but since Tormod is borrowing that, we have no way of doing that. Jill uses her hand axe to break down one of the last doors. This is not only helpful for bonus experience, but it also helps wear down Jill's hand axe. It has to be gotten down to 18 uses at some point in the run later on, and doing it on something like a door is helpful because that way we don't have to deal with a lower accuracy where it wouldn't consume a use if it missed. So that's it for 1-7. We completed in 4 turns, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.